few more people are on the call now, so let's just go down the list. And first thing on our agenda, just quickly introduce everybody so we all know who's on the call. And after that, so just for now, just say who you are, where you're from, what your role is, and then I'm going to go through and call on the different county leaders to give us an update as to what's been going on in your county in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and particularly where are we with getting the door-to-door canvas going. So let's just go on the list. Sarah Salsi is up first. So Shelby, why don't you call them out and unmute them, and we'll get the reports in.
Absolutely. So Sarah Salsi, you're unmuted. So Ken, do you want to do this where we do introductions and an update at the same time as we go through?
Let's go through introductions first, and then we'll go do the updates after the introductions.
Okay. Sarah, go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know what you do.
I'm Sarah Salsi. I'm one of the Albany County co-chairs, and I'm basically coordinating activities.
All right.
Okay,
thank
good.
you, Sarah. Brett, you are unmuted.
Brett Garonati, Natrona County, co-leader.
Awesome. Thank you. And Lois Peterson.
Lois Peterson, Johnson County, and I'm just a volunteer at this point.
All right. Thank you, Lois.
Welcome.
And Pam.
Pam Mathewson, Albany County, data wrangler.
Awesome. Thank you. Ken Chestek's on the call. I think you've all heard from him. Melody.
You skip Margie.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear Melody.
Okay, I'm from Laramie County. I'm one of the co-chairs, and I work with petitioning. Right now we're working hard on it and looking at our day as to being for active, our day of action is the 30th.
Okay,
All
we'll
right.
go back to the report in a second. I think you skipped Margie. You want to go back to Margie?
Yes, I'm going back to Margie. Sorry about that. You're unmuted.
Hi, I'm Margie Farias, and I'm in Fremont County. I'm the county organizer.
Thanks, Margie.
Welcome, Margie.
And Chris Corfonta, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Chris from Sheridan County, and I'm one of the team leaders.
Thank you, Chris. And Catherine.
Catherine and Mike here, co-leaders, person.
Awesome. Which county?
Well, all of our events are done, and we're just trying to figure out the best day for a canvas, or whether we want to do it like, rather than try to gather up 10 or 15 people to do it, just do it like 2 at a time. And that looks like what it's going to be. You know, nothing big, but we could, maybe the quantity of walks are more than the quantity of people in a single walk.
Okay,
gotcha.
We'll get back to that in a little bit. Let's just finish calling the roll here. Linda Ollinger.
Hi, Linda here, Fremont County, circulator.
All right. Thank you, Linda.
Okay, good. So looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different county team leaders here, and a few other data managers and circulators on the call. Let's go down the list of the county team leaders and just a brief report as to what's going on in your county. Where are you with your efforts, and have we got a day of action scheduled, and how can we help? So let's start off with Sarah Salsi from Albany County. How are things going in Albany County, Sarah?
I think they're going pretty well. We have a volunteer meeting tomorrow evening, in which I hope to get an update as to where we're at with Albany County signatures. We've been taking advantage of the football games here, both to get out information and to get signatures, and then we have an event here called the Higher Ground Fair, which we hope to get more signatures from as well. It's a 2-day event over at the fairgrounds. We don't, at this point, we don't plan to have a canvassing event. We're doing pretty well with what we've got. We expect that we'll be able to, well, actually, that's already happening. We'll have some circulators at the Wyoming Student Union to get signatures from students there. And now we're just kind of looking forward to October to see what else is going on. And we may consider a canvassing event at that time, but for the time being anyways, we're not doing a canvassing event.
Okay, how are the football games going? Are you getting a good number of signatures at the football games?
Not bad, but I think we could do better if we had some more circulators. So, my apologies. Sylvia ran into an interesting challenge in that she said more than half of the people at the football games are not from Wyoming.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
Yeah, so a lot of folks from Colorado and neighboring states. So it's nice. So it's great, for supporting the team, but it doesn't really help us quite as much. But I think there's plenty of opportunities, and if anybody from around the state is ever here and they want to give us, if they want to circulate petitions, they're more than welcome to touch base with us, and we're happy to point them in the right direction.
Yeah, and the way you're doing it, you have a table, or basically it's a tailgate event before the game?
This last time we had a table, and then Sylvia circulated her petition around. She got about 20 signatures over the course of 4 hours, so 3.5 hours, something like that. So since tailgating is new to most of us for one reason or another, it's still kind of a work in progress as to what's going to be most effective, but that's what we did last time.
Okay, sounds great. And so we'll talk about door-to-door starting in October, because you've got basically, it sounds like all of September, every weekend in September is a football game.
That's
and
correct.
When Saturdays turn out to be a good day for canvassing, except in Albany County when there's football games those days, I guess we'll look at October for some door-to-door here in Albany County. Is that right?
Well, maybe we want an update to find out if that's going to be necessary for us. And so hopefully we'll get that from Pam Matthewson before too long.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, let's go on to Brett up in Natrona. How are things up in Casper, Brett?
I think that they could be going better. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
I think that they could be going better. We have had some defections from our group. I think that different people with different opinions, maybe hailing from different political parties, are kind of sparring, and that is causing us to what seemed to be people leaving or wanting to leave. And then I kind of came in with an email that said, we're basically, this is pretty great that for an issue like this that we consider it to be a threat to democracy as we know it, can really put us on equal footing on the same ground. And well, I think that this one individual is going to help out kind of in a more subtle way, maybe not at meetings where they've actually started to be called steering committee meetings, because what we found here is people don't seem to be interested in coming to meetings, and I'm sure others have found that as well. And we're really having trouble with getting circulators. And so what I've done was to send out, at least to our main participants, our main volunteers, a list of those folks that had originally signed here in Natrona, and we're making an effort to contact those folks to see if we can get some circulators out of that group. And as far as gathering signatures has gone, we've been going around and getting to events like the markets and that sort of thing. And then also, downtown Casper has a lot of new things going on, so I'll just go down there and walk around on the sidewalk a lot and get signatures that way. It's not like I'm really burning through signatures though, so I think with every effort, I may get 20 or so if I really spend some time. But then it's a problem because it does take so much time.
Right.
On a positive note, we've got a walk time set up for Sunday, and we'll be going throughout the afternoon. It'll be 12 to 4. And we've reached out to Chris. I sent him a map of where our circulators are located, and I'm still waiting to get walk lists back, because if anybody has been familiar with Van before, or in any other context, the Van that we have available to us, we're not able to create our own walk lists. That Chris Bell will make those. So I'm waiting for those to come back. I've got an alternative set up and ready to go if that doesn't come through. But Chris is a really strong worker, a strong leader for the state, and I really don't have any doubt that those will come back and be ready for us to work on Sunday.
That sounds great. I think we're going to find that the days of action and getting a bunch of people on the streets walking neighborhoods is going to be a lot more effective than events, I believe. So I'm looking forward to getting started on the walk list. I'm glad you got one started coming up this Sunday. And I'm going to double check with Chris to make sure that we get those walk lists out to you so that you can be effective when you're out knocking on doors. Let me just add one quick question. We need to keep going, but if you could briefly just report, what was the nature of the conflict between the parties? Or is there some substantive issue, or is it's just a partisan political thing?
It's kind of a political thing. I think that one person is thinking about, and actually she's probably determined that she will run for a House district, and she brought that up, and the other party was, I could tell that they weren't interested in listening to each other because it went there basically, and so there was there was some talking over top of each other, and listening effectively stopped, and then the one member kind of said that after much deliberation I decided to back out, but then I sent an email and I that I understood where she was coming from, and blah blah blah, all this stuff, and I think she'll be willing to still participate, because she did say she would still gather signatures, and so I reached out that olive branch, and I think we still have somebody that will operate in the circulator capacity. So
okay, that's good.
But what I'll do, what I plan to do, real quick, is to make it really apparent that this is a nonpartisan effort, and we need to kind of leave. We may have differences sitting in here, and realize that we may all be coming from different places, but we still understand this one common thing here, that this money in politics is destroying democracy. And that's what we need to focus on. And
okay, good. All right, great. Thank you for that report. Let's take Lois very briefly. I know you're not a team leader because there's not really a team going on in Johnson County, but do you want to just quickly let us know, Lois, what you're up to and how we can help?
we are just getting started, I think, and you're right. We don't. I'm not sure if Greg is our team leader or not, but he's mentioned a willingness to do that. He was at the Oktoberfest event that was this past weekend. I know they got some signatures. I don't know how much. They combined that with a table that was for the Democrats. I think that might have been a mistake. It probably needed to be separate from the Democratic table. Democratic Party table, but that's happened, and he did get a few there. I'm kind of thinking of putting an article in the paper, and I don't know. I'm not really comfortable with doing a lot of canvassing, going door to door. But I was thinking that if I put an article in the paper explaining what this is and how it, how they can do sign something that would help the Congress be able to put this on the ballot and so on, and then put hours on there that somebody will be at, say, the library, and that anybody who's interested in signing, they don't have to. I mean, they can come in privately, they can come in on their lunch hour or whatever, and sign the petition or get information if they aren't ready to sign yet. I wanted to try that, and plus going to just the groups that I'm involved in that are not political groups, just social groups and community service groups, and trying to get signatures there.
Okay, sounds good. Lois, why don't you and I correspond, email or phone after the call, because I got a few ideas I want to share with you, but I don't think we need to take the whole group time talking about that. But let's you and I talk in the next day or two.
Sounds good. I'll email some stuff to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. And there's also a lot of information on our Wyoming Promise website, a lot of sample letters and other information that you can borrow and use. We have sample news releases, letters to the editor, all kinds of stuff that you can borrow from and use. Okay, let's move on. Laramie County is the next team we have represented here. Melody, let's unmute Melody here. And go ahead, Melody. What's going on in Laramie County?
Well, it's a little more positive. We've got like 19 petitioners. But as I've heard from other groups, it's the same thing. The people that started it at first are no longer really participating. So I've been working and getting people, and then sometimes I get petitions back. I wanted the country doctor. He said he could petition at his office. It turns out he can't because no one can be with a petition. So things change. Things are coming up and going, and I am concerned because so many people I've talked to have no idea what this is. And it's not just one person, it's many people. So it's like, how do we educate the people in Laramie County or in Wyoming of what it means? And this is actually occurring. They either don't see the paper or they don't have any idea. They're too busy. But I think the canvassing might help. But still, we're going to miss a lot of people.
Yeah,
but we're going to miss a lot of people.
To ask a question, what's it about? You can give them a brochure. Here's what it's about. I think the canvassing is going to be really helpful.
And our problem is, I think so far we've only had a primary 5 to 7 people who are petitioning. So, and only 5 to 7 that are going to canvass. So it's a concern as to the way the people take the petitions, but they don't get involved.
Right.
That's my concern. But okay, which meeting was last night?
Last night was the organizers meeting, I thought.
Yes, it was. We only had 3 people show.
Okay.
That's why, we only have the two people that are going to be at the canvassing. As you know, one of them is Vanda. They're on trips, so they will be back. I am in touch with them and pretty much know who is participating. It's just how to get those other ones involved. Oh. I email, but getting them out is going to be the trick. A lot of them say, well, I'll be in, one lady said she'd be in Jackson and ISIS petition there. So she says, I can do that. I explained how. And yes, you can petition anywhere you go in Wyoming as long as they're a registered voter. So this is something that also might help each county.
Right. Okay.
But we're waiting for James to get trained for our data manager. Matthew is doing a little bit at a time.
Okay, well, that's good to know. All right, thank you for that report, Melody. Let's move on now to Margie from Fremont. Let's unmute Margie. And how's it going up in Lander and Riverton?
Well, a lot of my key people, including myself, have been in and out of town this month, but Carol, of course, is our data manager, and she's a gift. She's done a great job, and I haven't talked to her in the last few days, but I have a feeling that she would probably tell me our count of signatures that have been entered is around, well, I know I've given her over 1,000. How many have actually panned out, I don't know. She says there's about a 10% rate that don't work for whatever reason. But I'm happy that we're at around 1,000. I have actually mailed in or delivered 7 full packets to Shelby. So that's good. I know I still have a long way to go, but I don't know. You tell me whether or not that's good or not.
That sounds fantastic. Sounds like you're well on your way.
Let's see. I have about, I'm guessing about 25 circulators, but much like Melody said, that a lot of people take packets and then they don't really do a whole lot with them. I would say I have about 7 people out of that who are actually active and really producing. And that's encouraging, but I'd love to get some of these other people engaged, and I'm hoping that the door-to-door opportunity might do that if they can pair up with somebody who is active. So that's what I'm looking for. Of course, let's see, we haven't had any organized meetings per se, except for maybe the Fremont County Democrats picnic a few weeks ago, and I was able to talk to most of my circulators there, not all of them, but I actually picked up a couple of new ones there. And let's see, I'm thinking for everybody that's out there just going to events and everything, you know, once you get about 30 or 40, you're pretty exhausted because you're having to talk to every single person practically. So I'm really happy if I get between 20 and 30 at a time. I mean, really happy. And that's just the way it goes.
You want to say something briefly about the upcoming events in October?
Sure. Well, we've got you, Ken, coming to Riverton and Lander to do public meetings the first weekend, and then we're going to have a training the morning after your public meetings, and hopefully our first door-to-door canvassing that same day. And I'm
first weekend of October.
Right. Well, it's the 5th and the 6th are the meetings, and then the 7th is a Saturday where we'll have the canvassing. And I'm hoping that I have at least 6 or 8 circulators that will show up for that. I don't know. I haven't really contacted anybody yet. Well, I have a few, but I don't get a lot of response on the email.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to start using the telephone.
Yeah. All right. Good. Sounds like if you've got 1,000 signatures, you're in great shape. I think that's a great start, and I'm confident that we're going to get all the way to the goal here. We need to keep moving along because I want to get people off the call here in an hour. So let's move on to Chris up in Sheridan. How are things going up in Sheridan, Chris?
Up and down. I can echo a lot of what I've heard tonight. I thought I'd start with the positives. We had a great data wrangler. We had a meeting last week, and we didn't have many people show up, but a lot of enthusiasm, but no enthusiasm for going door to door. I have another, well, I hope she was able to get on this conference call. I didn't send her email in to you, but Carol Torbert is another lady here who's going to help be an organizer, leader. We have an event tomorrow, the last, and a table there. We've met with a current legislator who supports what we're doing, and he's Republican, but he wouldn't sign our petition. And then I did finally talk with Rosie Berger, an ex-legislator, and she gave me a lot of ideas. And then I have the same problem with emails, so one really nice young gal who's a stay-at-home mom with a toddler has volunteered to call all the people who I have listed having petitions. I haven't heard from her as to what she came up with, but she was going to call everyone and touch base and remind them of certain things on the website, etc.
Okay.
See.
So what was Rosie's take on the whole thing? Was she a supporter? Is she going to be able to help us out, or is she going to stay in the background?
She's really busy with other things, but she gave me lots of ideas of people to contact, which I haven't had time to do. She sees the problem. She supports it. She wants to see more. Well, of course, she suffered because of it. And then the legislator I talked to was Mark Kenner, another Republican, and he has seen the effects of dark money. But his first question was, how do Inzi and Barrasso feel about it? And one of our people contacted Inzi and Barrasso. Inzi, of course, is not in favor of doing anything about it. He thinks we have through the FEC we can get all the info we know about who gets campaigns. So have about 25 petitions out and people asking for some, that nobody is willing to canvass door to door. We're going to have a meeting early October focusing on that. Just need a lot more help than I have. One of my team leaders is slowly backing out of the picture, and so anyway, I guess that's it. And I'm glad, hey, Lois, Citizen, whoever you are, I'm glad to know somebody in Johnson County is organizing.
Yeah, we need to put you guys in touch with each other and work together, because you're not that far apart. Okay, right. Try to keep things moving along here. Thank you for that report, Chris. And finally, the last county report from Sweetwater County. Kathy and Mike, how are things going over Rock Springs, Green River area?
Well, Janice's mama passed away. We have another circulator who's getting married. We've got a lot of people who've got a lot of other things to do right now. We have about 3 people that are willing to do a day of action, and we're going to try to do it on October the 7th, Saturday, October the 7th. We don't know what it's going to look like yet. We just know we're going to try to do something.
Okay. Same day we're going to be doing one up in Fremont County. So that could be a big day for getting data for our project.
Yep.
Anything else to add?
We took 7 petitions to Shelby, and Mike has finished one more, and I'm just about ready to finish another one myself. So that'll give us our first 1,000.
Okay. You guys are doing great.
Well, I wish we were doing better. You know, I have high hopes for the door-to-door.
I do too.
It's something I don't mind doing, but we'll just see how it works out.
Yeah. I think that's where we're going to get our bigger numbers.
Well, we have to, because we didn't get them during the events.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Kathy and Mike, for that report. I want to go quickly through some of the rest of the agenda items, because we have one more topic that's going to take a little bit of time. a couple of quick updates from the steering committee. We have some possible movement on a field organizer. We're going to try. We have another application. We're going to be talking to that person very soon, and hopefully, if that works out, we may have a field organizer on board here to do some help centrally within the next couple of weeks. We'll report back on that when that's finished. Wanted to report quickly on an event we had in Cheyenne earlier or late last week. Jeff Clements, who is the president of American Promise, contacted me. He said he was going to be in Denver on Wednesday night. Is there something he could help us out with in Wyoming on Thursday? And I said, sure, let's do an event in Cheyenne. And so we publicized it. We held it at the library. Melody was there. Got some good volunteer names. I thought the event went really well. Jeff is a great speaker. Was very energetic and inspiring. And we had a couple of people who weren't super active before become super active afterwards. So it's kind of generating a little bit of buzz over in Laramie County, where we needed some buzz. So I thought it was a very time well spent by Jeff Clements, and I thought it was an excellent event. I wanted to also update everybody on some testimony that I gave on Monday of this week up in Lander. The Joint Corporations Committee was having its interim meeting. Both House and Senate members were there. They're working on a bunch of bills, some dealing with elections. And so they have their joint meeting. It was a 2-day meeting, Monday and Tuesday. And Monday afternoon they had a time set aside for general comments from the public. And so I went up there to report in basically as to where we were with our project, because it could end up back in front of the legislature. You may remember that we started this project last January 1st by going to the legislature, asking them to approve a resolution calling on Congress to propose this amendment. We did not have an Article 5 convention call built into that one because we knew that was going to be a non-starter, would never get through. The Corporations Committee, the House Corporations Committee, took that bill up, passed it on with a due pass recommendation to the full House, where it died on the last day for bills to clear the House because they didn't have time to get to it. So we did get some positive response from the House Corporations Committee, which was great. Then we started this petition drive, and if we are successful in getting enough signatures on petitions, we then file them with the Secretary of State, and then the Secretary of State asks the legislature, do you want to do this on your own rather than put it on the ballot? So that's why I wanted the Corporation Committee to know where we were with the process and just get ready for the fact that if we do have enough signatures by next February, this will be on their plate in the next session. So that was a 5-minute report, and then it got weird. Cale Case, who is a senator from Fremont County, started in on me, and I was a little mouse he was toying with for the next 15 minutes, asking me all kinds of rather strange questions, including and the one that really bothered me and kind of led me to the training session we're going to do later on today on this call. He asked me a question. He read part of a proposed amendment to the Constitution. This is actually a proposal that's now in Congress, hasn't gone anywhere yet, but it's been proposed in Congress. And the language of that one has some language about how money is not speech and every citizen should have an equal right to representation, and asked me if I agreed with that. And I said, well, yeah, that's kind of what we're up to. And he was offended by that language, that if we're going to impose have a requirement for equal speech, then people who have lots of money can't use that advantage. He didn't say it in those terms, but that was the tenor of what he was saying. He was offended by the idea of having equal access to legislators, and people with money are going to be losing their speech rights, which I thought was a very strange take. But anyway, that event happened, and I wanted everybody to know that Senator Case is a board member for the Wyoming Liberty Group, and another speaker when we were talking about one of the other bills unrelated to what we're doing, a lobbyist for the Wyoming Liberty Group was there, and he actually name-checked us as a threat to what they're trying to accomplish. That Wyoming Promise is doing things that he's opposing. So we're getting under the skin of the Wyoming Promise, Wyoming Liberty Group, which is not surprising. That's a major dark money group that's doing a lot of this funding of things around the state of Wyoming. They've noticed us. They're afraid of us. They're starting to push back against us already. And I just want everybody on this call to be aware of the fact that the Wyoming Liberty Group is going to be a source of opposition to us, and we want to talk a little bit later on about how to deal with that. So that's my report on the Joint Corporations Committee. Also, I wanted to let everyone know we have, Shelby, are the trifolds printed yet, or are we still waiting to hear back from the printer?
Yeah, a couple of things. We've got plenty of trifolds. We have plenty of T-shirts. We have plenty of buttons, plenty of stickers, plenty of clipboards. Anything you might need, all you need to do is reach out to me, shelby.shadwell@gmail.com or info@wyomingpromise.org. Let me know what you need, and I'll get a package out to you, whether it's petitions, clipboards, trifolds, anything. We've got a lot of those now, and I have no problem fulfilling those orders as soon as possible moving forward. And when I send those out, I'll give you a tracking number, USPS, et cetera, and so that you'll know when those arrive. It'd be good if you're doing days of action or any events, and you want to make sure to have things for those events, just let me know as soon as possible, and I will get on that for sure. I did also want to say about the Jeff Clements event in Cheyenne. One of our steering committee members, Carly Provenza, is putting together, we just got some pictures from that event today, which we'll be updating things with, and we're going to have video here in a little while. Carly, being a doctoral candidate, is a little busy, but she's going to give us some good snippets of video that we can share via social media. So I wanted to let everybody know that.
Great. Thank you, Shelby. And then also very quickly on the website, the Where to Sign page is coming along. A number of counties now have set up some free email accounts. We have that information on our site. If you haven't done that yet, just a reminder to set up an email account, and then we can list that on the Where to Sign page, and then that'll make it easier for people to contact you to find out where to go sign. I don't have an update on the numbers. I asked Chris for that this morning, but I haven't gotten it back yet. So just from the numbers I'm hearing today, I'm guessing we probably have 5,000 to 6,000 signatures already. It's not 38,800, but it's a good start. So I think we're making progress. I do sense that we're getting some momentum building as more people hear about this. I just got a contact today from somebody who sounds very excited about being a team leader in Teton County. And that's excellent news. We need a good team there. We don't have one yet. So I'm going to be following up with that individual very soon, and hopefully we'll get Teton here organized and launched in the very near future. Also, just a kind of a fun thing, several of the counties have started a little friendly competition to be the first county to hit your goal. It sounds like a couple of counties here are getting close to halfway there. So when I get the current numbers from Chris, which I should get in the next day or two, I will send them around in an email to all the county team leaders so you'll know what we have. And the numbers that we have are probably lower than the numbers you have because there may be some data that hasn't been entered yet into VAN. So we'll keep you updated as soon as I get more up-to-date information about where we are. Okay, the last thing I wanted to do, it would take a little bit of time, was kind of circling back to the questions I was getting from Senator Case and also from a blog post I later read on the Wyoming Liberty Group's page. It sounds like the Wyoming Liberty Group is starting a strategy of attacking us literally by name and name-checking Wyoming Promise as we are advocating censorship. In other words, we're opposed to the First Amendment by doing this work, and that's their line of attack that they seem to be starting to play with and advance. So I wanted to take that issue on directly, and I've written a little script which will turn into a handout, and you can read it and use it. So if you get a question while you're out canvassing along those lines, here's a suggested way of how to handle it. And you probably recall we did something like this for the Article 5 question, Convention of States. Here's how to handle questions dealing with censorship in the First Amendment. And the question, Shelby's going to read the questions. He's the skeptic, the voter who's skeptical about what we're trying to do. But these questions are not softballs. They're not straw men. They're serious questions that serious people might ask, and we need to take them seriously and provide a substantive response to. So, Shelby, you're skeptical about doing this. Why?
Yes, and just before that, I want to go back to this came out of Ken going to the Corporations Committee session, and there will be some groups that are against this because they benefit greatly from dark money in politics. And the thing is, first, and I know this is a little cliche, first they'll laugh at us, and then they'll fight us, and then we will win. So I want everybody to keep that in mind. They're afraid of us, and because of what we're doing, we don't need to be afraid of them at all. So just definitely keep that in mind. So, Mr. Chestek, I am a very skeptical voter here, or somewhat skeptical, and when you say that you want to deprive corporations of the right to speak, aren't you advocating censorship?
No, not at all. Corporations are fictional entities and really can't speak at all. When people say corporations should have the right to speak, they're just buying into the analogy that corporations are people. But we believe that corporations are very different from people. They have very different interests from people, and they are designed as tools to facilitate commerce and economic activities. They are not designed for political speech.
But I remember, Mitt Romney said corporations are people, my friend. Aren't they people? They're run by people. They employ people or owned by people. So shouldn't corporations as collections of people be allowed to speak?
The problem with that analogy is who speaks for the corporation? Is it the shareholders? In a large public corporation, the shareholders are very diverse and very disconnected from the day-to-day management of the corporation. They don't have any way of voicing their opinion in the management of the corporation. In a closely held corporation that very few people own, well, then the owners of that the few owners of that corporation, they can just speak in their own voices. They don't really need a corporation to speak for them. Do the employees of the corporation speak for the corporation? Well, of course not. Many times the employees have very divergent interests from the corporation itself. Employees want to be paid more. The corporation wants to pay less to save profit. So the employees are probably the last people that can really speak for the corporation itself. So that leaves just the corporate executives and the board of directors to choose what the corporation says. But once again, those people have their own voices. Why should they hide behind the corporation? If they believe what they want the corporation to say, why not allow those humans to speak in their own voices? We're not trying to shut down those individuals.
But by shutting down corporate speech or union speech, aren't you subtracting some voices from the marketplace of ideas that the First Amendment protects?
Not at all. Again, we need to discard the bad metaphor that corporations are people. They aren't. Corporations are tools created by humans to do specific things. When corporate leaders try to use a corporation to, quote, speak, they are really turning that corporation into a megaphone to amplify their own speech. And that is exactly the problem. Corporate speech can quickly become so loud and overpowering when amplified by corporate money that it drowns out the speech of ordinary citizens who don't have that tool. So our proposal actually promotes free speech for ordinary citizens by shutting down the megaphones that drown our voices out.
What about media corporations, Mr. Chestek? Are you going to tell the New York Times that it can't endorse political candidates anymore?
Well, that's a great question. But think about this. Media corporations are unlikely to be affected by our proposed 20th Amendment. The First Amendment says, I'm quoting, "Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press." Note that the freedom of speech is protected separately from the freedom of the press. Citizens United deals with speech rights, not press rights. By overturning Citizens United, we do not mean to impair the freedom of the press. Now, of course, that creates some definitional problems about what corporations qualify for protection as members of the press, but those lines shouldn't be that hard to draw. And everybody would agree which side of the line the New York Times is on.
All right, so you want money out of politics, but what if a very wealthy individual wanted to spend millions of dollars of his own money supporting wind power? Does your proposed amendment restrict that?
Now you're getting into the money is not speech portion of our initiative, which raises the distinction between policy and politics. Issue advocacy, that is, advocating policy measures, has always been treated differently from direct advocacy for individual political candidates. With advocacy for candidates, there's a real risk of corruption. The elected politicians' official votes or official actions conform to the wishes of the wealthy donor instead of what is preferred by the individual voters. So we need to eliminate that possibility by restricting spending on direct advocacy. With policy advocacy, however, the possibility of corruption is gone. Policy advocacy is directed to the public and tries to influence public opinion. Since the candidate does not directly benefit from that expenditure, his or her vote is not directly impacted by policy advocacy.
But why couldn't that wealthy individual who's in favor of wind power spend that money on direct advocacy for a candidate? That makes us a free country, right? Why can't I give my money to whomever I want?
So you're taking the corporate speech problem out of the equation now and saying that individuals should have no limits on direct advocacy for candidates. I've got two responses there. First, that is not actually the law right now. Both the state and federal election laws still have limits on how much individuals can donate to any candidate. For example, individuals cannot donate more than $2,700 to any congressional candidate by federal law. Citizens United did not strike down that limit, and we think that's a reasonable limit. Second, changing the law to remove caps on individual donations to candidates raises the risk of corruption just as much as unlimited corporate donations do. So we would be opposed to allowing any huge donations to individual candidates. What Citizens United did was provide wealthy individuals with a handy workaround to avoid limitations on direct donation to candidates. Now, while a wealthy individual can only donate $2,700 directly to his preferred candidate, he can donate an unlimited amount of money to a super PAC, who can then spend that money on direct advocacy for that candidate. It's a perfect workaround to the individual limitation. This is another reason why Citizens United must be overturned.
Well, I'm still a little nervous about this, Mr. Chestek. Your measure still kind of looks like it's trying to prohibit speech, and Citizens United was designed to protect speech.
Citizens United explicitly says that corporations have the right to engage in political speech. It does not address the right of corporations to engage in other forms of speech like commercial speech, advertising, things like that. Corporations are commercial entities, so allowing corporations to engage in commercial speech makes sense. Corporations are not, or at least should not be, political entities. They can't vote, and they should not be allowed to engage in politics directly. They are not designed to do that. Politics is an inherently human undertaking. It is how humans relate to each other. Corporations, which were created by humans to serve humans, must be subject to human control. When they use their vast wealth and power to drown out our human voices, they do a grave disservice to political discourse, and our politics are absolutely corrupted as a result. The Free and Fair Elections Initiative restores the right of all human beings to engage in political speech and to have their voices heard. It thereby creates a far more robust and diverse marketplace of ideas out of which good decisions can arise.
I tell you what, Mr. Chestek, I was a skeptical voter, but I think you've convinced me that this thing is something we should try out. And in addition to that, I'm just going to add to all of this that there are limitations on the Constitution on all free speech. You can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater. And I think if you really want to get to the heart of this, corporations being able to spend all this unlimited money, and unions and other entities in our elections, and who knows what money's coming from other countries in a dark money kind of way, is the equivalent of yelling fire in a crowded movie theater because it drowns out all the other voices. And so there are limitations on all of our rights, and we're just trying to put reasonable ones on this one as well. So thanks, Ken, for convincing me.
Thank you, voter. So we're done with that. That's kind of we're sort of modeling a conversation that you might have trying to directly address all those questions that I just put into that script were things that came up during the 15 minutes of weirdness at the Corporations Committee where Cale Case was trying to make an example out of me. So we know that these kinds of questions are being scripted, and those are the talking points that are out there from the Wyoming Liberty Group, and we need to be aware of that and be ready to respond to them. So does anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts about what we just talked about, the censorship argument?
Or anything else. Just press 1 on your dial pad if you have a question, concern, or anything else.
Right, exactly. Anything else? We're getting to the end of the meeting here. Okay, Chris Corfanta. Shelley, you want to unmute Chris?
Got it.
Okay, Chris.
Hi. I've been interested in the Wyoming Liberty Group lately and have been doing a lot of reading about them, and it sounds to me like some of their people were in on the Citizens United decision, and there's a huge unnamed source of funding that is funding the Liberty Group. Would it be a decent idea to write a letter about the Liberty Group, a letter to the editor, expose it, saying this is an example of dark money? They have been having quite a few commercials during the Wyoming Games on the radio. I don't know if you've paid attention to that, but they are really advocating for no new taxes and join their group, et cetera, et cetera.
That's a great question, a great suggestion. I have toyed with the idea. After the lobbyist for the Wyoming Liberty Group made his speech where he name-checked us, when I got home, I went out to their website rather reluctantly, but I had to, and found the blog post he was talking about. He was talking about a blog he had written about us, and I've toyed with the idea of posting a comment on his blog, but I'm playing on their turf at that point, and I'm not sure it's a smart thing to do. So that's one of the things that we can discuss at the steering committee level, I think, Shelby. Let's make a note of that to discuss what kind of response. I'm glad that we now know that the Wyoming Liberty Group, we know who our enemy is, and we can study them now and really get a sense of what their line of attack is and prepare for it. So we'll talk about that at the steering committee level. Good suggestion.
Let me just add to that really. let me just add to the more research you can do on that group, knowledge is, of course, power. And so the more we know kind of about them, the better, I think. So if anybody's interested in just kind of keeping notes on what they do, where they're at, I don't necessarily think we have to engage them like Ken said yet, but we'll talk about it at the steering committee level. But just keep an eye out, follow them if they've got a Facebook presence and see what they're saying. And I don't think that hurts. Again, they'll try to fight us because they benefit from this system, and we don't, but we can at least keep an eye on what they're doing. Brett, I believe, you're unmuted. You have your hand up.
Okay, so Ken, Shelby, great acting roles you guys have there. I was wondering about Ken, you mentioned that you had these responses kind of written out and everything. I was wondering if we could get that resource. Kind of seemed like you were reading.
Yes. Yeah, okay. We're going to post that. I have it in kind of a sketchy form right now, but I will clean it up and we'll post it on the volunteer resources tab of the website. We did a script like this a few weeks ago dealing with how to deal with an Article 5 convention. That script is already up on the volunteer resources page, so you can download it and train your circulators with that, give it to them to read, and we'll have the one that we just did tonight. We'll put that one up probably the next day or two.
Cool. And one other thing about that blog post, Shelby, could you send me that, or send us the URL for that?
Absolutely. I'll do that in the recap email tomorrow or the next. And so you should have that soon. And I will also add to that, if any team leaders on this call don't have access to our we do have the volunteer resources tab on the website, and that's great. Everybody has access to that, but we have even some further talking points and resources in our shared Google Drive folder. And if you don't have access to that yet, let me know, and I'll make sure to send you an email and share that with you. So yeah, we'll definitely get those things posted. Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, Lois is up next. Unmute Lois.
Lois, you're on mute.
I wanted Ken's email address, and I would also like the Google folder information sent to me.
Absolutely, Lois. I'll get that.
Go ahead. All right, yeah, Lois. My email address is kchestek@gmail.com. Send me an email, and then you and I can touch base later this week about how to get things going in Johnson County, and maybe get you in touch with Chris up in Sheridan.
Okay, I got KCHES, and then I missed the next letter.
CEK, kchestek@gmail.com.
Okay.
Or you can just send it to info@wyomingpromise.org, and that'll get to me eventually too.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty quickly too. Anybody who ever wants forgets our emails or anything, just send an email to info@wyomingpromise.org, and that'll get around, and everybody will be able to share each other's email addresses that way too. So yeah. Any other questions or concerns?
Right. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you all for attending, and hope this is useful information, and we will be in touch with you again, and hopefully within the next couple of days I'll have our official numbers that are current, and we'll email those out to everybody so you can see where we're all at, and we'll keep on rolling. Thank you all for all the work you're doing. This is great.
Yeah, thanks everybody. And I do want to say, for me, I'm new to political activism. I'm on this issue because I feel like the most important issue that addresses all of the issues, and it is a roller coaster. And there'll be really high highs and there'll be really low lows. But to see where we've come this far, stick with it. Encourage your circulators to stick with it. I know sometimes it can seem a little daunting, and it is, but it's better than sitting on the couch. And if we can tackle this issue, man, it's gonna affect all the issues. And I think all you guys know that for sure. So thank you so much for what you do, and keep up the great work and keep the faith. I think we're gonna win this. I know we're gonna win this. So stick with it.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody. And that ends the call. Thank you. Bye-bye.